Marysville has seen a few changes over the years. Postcards capture a moment in time that allows us to look back and see things the way they were. I present you Marysville before fast food and strip malls. Here are three different bird's eye views of Marysville from around 1908 to 1911. The top left corner was taken from the courthouse with the view of West 5th Street and the public square. Notice the artist interpretations taken by the photographer of the postcard. Notice the Oakland Hotel with its many awnings displayed prominently on the northeast corner of the public square. The lower left corner postcard was taken from the old City Hall and Opera House, which is where the fire station is now located. The building in the forefront was the old Journal Tribune building and is now the city parking lot. Do you see the old warehouse directly behind the Journal Tribune? That is now the City Hall. The homes beside it are now gone, and the Marysville Public Library now stands in their place. In the distance, you can see the familiar steeple of Trinity Lutheran Church. Further back, you can see the large East High School, which was replaced with the East Elementary building. To the right in the photo is the old German Lutheran School. It is now parking and playground for Trinity. The last postcard on the right side is also a view from the City Hall and Opera House looking out towards the Union County Courthouse. The home in the foreground and the Congregational Church still stand today. In fact, the home is the oldest brick home in Marysville, built by Cyprian Lee in 1832, and was also the home of Noah Orr, showman giant in the circus world, and Jacob Morlock, a breeder of fine horses. The stable is located directly behind the home. This is the new firehouse, built as part of the new City Hall and Opera House in 1878. You can see the old Tribune building across the street. This photo is of the first ladder truck in front of the new firehouse. The City Hall and Opera House building was indeed an impressive structure built by local builders and carpenters. The clock tower housed a Seth Thomas clock. Unfortunately, the building was short-lived when the structure failed and was torn down in 1933, only 55 years after it had been built. Bricks from the old City Hall were reused in the older part of the current fire station. Directly behind the current fire station is what remains of the historic Academy. The Academy was built in 1844, where the Presbyterian Church now stands. Those who passed through those hallowed halls were people such as Doc Henderson and Nellie Cole. Nellie became Vice President First Lady Fairbanks. The Academy has been relocated several times. After the first location, it was later moved to the land where the current courthouse stands in 1865. There it was used as a firehouse. Then in the 1870s, it was moved to the location of the current fire station. It was used as an engine house and town hall. Later in 1878, it was moved behind the new City Hall and Opera House and was used as a stable for the firehouse horses. The top postcard shows the new horse-driven hook and ladder fire wagon, driven by actual horse power. The bottom right photo shows the Marysville Fire Department with their first motorized fire truck in 1916. Here is the Ohio Water Service Company in 1908. The water company was built in 1891 to furnish water and electricity. In 1904, it added ice-making equipment and storage. Ice was cut from Mill Creek during winter months and stored in the elevator section for summer use. Comparing it to today, little has changed. One item of interest was the old streetlight, as you can see by the enlarged image on the lower right corner. Union County has had 4 courthouses in its history. The first was located at the then county seat of Milford Center. It was later decided that Marysville should hold that position. The second courthouse was located in Marysville on the south side of East 5th Street, immediately on the other side of the alley from the public square. The third courthouse was built next to the Old American Hotel on the northwest corner of the public square. The American was a well-known landmark in the area. It was built in 1829 and was torn down in 1887 to make room for the Oakland Hotel. One eccentric and colorful resident of the American was Robson L. Broom. He came into Marysville in 1832 and lived at the American until his death. It was always suspected that he was a counterfeiter, and upon his death it was discovered he had amassed a sizable fortune. After a lot of detective work by Aaron Robinson at the time, it was determined he was actually Levi Brewster of the Mayflower Brewsters. He is buried in the Oakdale Cemetery as R.L. Broom. Another mysterious incident associated with the American was the discovery of skeletal remains found in the cellar floor upon its raising. To this day, the remains have never been positively identified. The fourth and current courthouse was built in 1883 and is still as majestic as ever. At one time, there were 4 metal eagles on the corners of the courthouse with wings outstretched as in flight. Unfortunately, it was feared with any high winds they really would take flight and cause injury, so they were removed for safety's sake. In this first black and white postcard, you will notice the horse and buggy. This was taken in the early days of the courthouse. The numerous trees were supplied by Harvey Wood, who had a nursery over on Delaware Avenue, near where Burger King is now located. The trees have been long gone. There were so many trees originally planted that if left alone, it would have been a forest and overtaken the courthouse views. The public square has seen little change over the years. These are views of the public square facing east on 5th Street. Because there was a fountain located on the southeast corner, it was known as Fountain Corner. The first mention of the fountain is 1894, when the Women's Christian Temperance Union purchased and placed a new fountain on the corner in front of the Charles Braun building. The original fountain was replaced in 1919 because a farmer from Dover Township broke the original. It was again replaced in 1930. A light fixture can be seen in the center of the square. Here we look south from the public square on Main Street. On the first postcard, you can see the southwest side of the street. It looks as if time has basically stood still when you view South Main from the public square. The most notable change is the new facade of the Marysville Bank and the old Weiss building. Where the old Avalon Theater stands was an interesting little wooden house called Broom's Retreat. You recall the earlier story of Robson L. Broom and the American Hotel. Well, Broom built this little house which the people referred to as Broom's Retreat. It had very narrow windows, which made it extremely hard to peek or snoop around to see what took place inside. Broom would leave his room at the American on rare occasions and seclude himself within the walls of this odd little place for several weeks, only to reappear and return to the American. It was speculated that perhaps a bit of counterfeiting might be going on inside. The old Houston block on the corner was built in 2 stages by Christopher Houston. The front side facing Main dates back to 1866 and the latter part in 1883. Houston died of pneumonia after shoveling snow off the roof one winter and catching a chill. His residence was the Houston House, located on West 5th Street. In the upper left corner, we see a view of the public square, most likely from the 1890s. To the right was the Oakland Hotel with its colorful awnings and Ott's men's clothing. Notice at one time there were 3 stories to Ott's, but since a fire in 1975, the top floors were destroyed, as well as the Oakland Hotel. On the right side is the Union Block and Cluckers. Both buildings still stand today. Notice the black arch over the street. These were lighted gateways into town and were located north, south, east, and west on the city blocks entering into the public square. The upkeep and expense of these were funded by the local businesses in town. This view is from 4th and North Main, looking south along the east side of North Main. Notice the wooden building which was at one time Kempfer's Framing Store. It originally started out as a tailor shop. Next to it was the Marysville Sanitarium for the treatment of alcoholism. The miracle cure was known as the Gold Treatment. This next postcard photo was taken around 1940 from the public square looking on the west side of North Main. New facades were placed over several of these west side buildings. One of the favorite places to shop was the Hafner's Five and Dime, located in the center. Transportation needs have been around since the invention of the wheel, and nothing's changed, just the packaging. Back then we envied the racehorse for speed, the draft horse for horsepower, and the buggy horse for a smooth ride. Today we envy the fast Ferraris, big monster trucks, muscle cars, and luxury rides. Charles Morlock had breeding stables located behind the Shearer House on West 6th Street. The building was built in 1910 and was used until 1925. The exercise yard was on the west side and opened up onto Court Street. All of Morlock's breeding stock were imported from Europe and were known far and wide. From the postcard, his prize stallions were Faust, Montforte, Samson, and Tommy. Morlock had been in the horse business since the 1880s. Before today's fast cars and mega dealerships, we had the Ford dealership. Here's the next generation of horsepower in Marysville, the H.I. Huffman Ford dealership located at the corner of North Plum and East 5th Street. Pictured in front of the dealership is H.I. Huffman himself along with his son, Boyd. And the price of gas? 25 cents. Those were the days. Here in the public square is one of the last virgin timbers of Union County. Here's the White Star Baking Company, which was located at 115 South Main in the Robinson Building. The Liggett Grocery Delivery Wagon, which was at 124 East 5th. And the Gunderman's Restaurant. Ina and Fred Zollner are standing outside it at 123 North Main. Here are a few more businesses from uptown Marysville. One of the interesting and unexpected things that are discovered during digitizing projects, sometimes they capture more than they intended. With the mirror reflection of a very clean window, you get a glimpse of what was across the street. There was a time when Marysville was the mecca of Union County, and many things were happening uptown. Here, the local women prepare Civil War cannons for what could be Armistice Day. The Civil War cannons had been put in storage for many years and have recently been returned back to the courthouse lawn. Here's uptown Marysville on the Saturday before Christmas in 1910, and we think Black Friday at the mall is crowded. And who can forget the excitement of the circus coming to town? This was Circus Day on August 14, 1907, facing north on Main Street. Everyone turned out to watch the elephants and wagons arrive from the train station and set up for performances. And here's a snapshot of daily life in uptown from around the 1940s. Notice that there was angle parking back then. As you can see, back in the 40s, Marysville was a happening place to be. Marysville also had many thriving industries. Above left was the John Wilde evaporated milk plant, which later became Nestle. Below is the Marysville Cabinet Company on East 4th. The main brick portion of that building still remains. It later became the Landmark Grain, and the building is still referred to as the Landmark Building by locals. The Standard Stamping Company was also a major industry here. Lumber companies were also an important part of the local industry. Above right was the Robinson and Curry Lumber Company, and below, many of us remember the Marysville Lumber Company as Judson's Lumber at the end of South Main on the sharp curve that was later removed. Do you remember that dangerous curve? Along with these businesses, there was a brewery, cigar factory, Elger's, and the Lintz Butter Tub Factory, among many others. Marysville has a long history of a desire for intellect and education. The West School was built in 1862 and was a state-of-the-art school in its day. It was located behind the old Carnegie Library on South Court Street. Both buildings have since been removed. The Carnegie Library was built in 1910 and was used until 1987 when the town outgrew it and needed a larger facility. On the corner of Chestnut and East 6th Street, where East Elementary was located, originally stood a grand three-story East High School built in 1876. The postcard on the left shows that building. The third story was later removed as it was thought to be a fire hazard. On the top right was another West building. It was built in 1914 and has since been torn down. The bottom right postcard is of the Marysville High School, which was built in 1930. Today it houses county offices and the Veterans Memorial Auditorium. At one time, Marysville had two train stations. The first was located on Sycamore Street, and it was the Toledo and Ohio Central Station. The second train station was the Big Four station, located in the area where the old Kitchen's grocery store was. It was also the site of the Big Four playground, which many locals have fond childhood memories of. The Big Four was the Cleveland, Cincinnati, Chicago, and St. Louis Railway. The Union County Fairgrounds has been in the same location since before the 1870s, and the grandstand still looks the same. Harness racing has always been big in the region, and apparently foot races were also taken seriously by the young boys in the county, especially the one young man who took the term foot race literally, by running barefoot. Summertime in Marysville was a great place to be for children. There were plenty of fun time activities to keep them entertained. The municipal swimming pool was a refreshing place to be on a hot summer day, and the Big Four playground was another fun place to play. And in the natural order of events, we all must someday part from this world. Marysville created the Oakdale Cemetery in 1880, and by 1909 the cemetery had been relocated to its present location. You discover interesting things in photographs when you zoom in for a closer look. Oakdale must have been a very busy place, and you needed a special invitation to visit. Rules for vault. Persons having friends in the vault will be admitted on Tuesdays and Fridays. Visitors only on permit from a trustee. I hope you've enjoyed this trip back in time to see what Marysville was like before fast food and strip malls. Come visit us at www.marysvillelib.org for more exciting digital collections of our local community.